Age 25, I knew that it was to build a tech-first platform. My co-founder and I literally sat in a basement in Shoreditch for a year from line one of code, building out the entire platform. So we own 100% of our IP.
But for me, that is the lesson. If something doesn't feel right to you, whatever other people are telling you or whatever the financial opportunity it is, just don't do it.
I started the company before kids, before a house. It would terrify me if you said, do what I did now.
Equity is everything, and hanging on to equity, if there's anyone in that early stage of wondering. And sometimes you've got to do it if you're producing a product and you haven't got the cash, you've got to do it.
After 25 years, that's brilliant because so many people do try and delegate a little bit too much and they actually miss a beat. And I think if you're not in the heart of your business, you can sometimes not be with your team when it counts. Well, what can I say? I've got 4 powerhouse boss women beside me, and thank you, ladies, for joining me. Yes, I mean, I think it's better to put in your words of your career highlights and a little bit of an overview of the companies that you've created. So maybe I'll let you take it from here for a couple of minutes to give a little whistle-stop tour about what you guys have been doing in the last bit. Georgie?
18 years.
18 years, a little bit, yeah.
18 long years. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Tash, as well, for having me on this panel today. I am the founder and CEO of SheerLuxe. I hope that means something to lots of you in the room. If not, we're not doing something right. But I started SheerLuxe as a directory of online retailers in the very, very early nascent days of digital. Long story short, the directory was phased out. Content became king, to coin a very cliched and overused phrase. But today we produce content for modern men and women wanting to live their best life. Our mission has remained the same, always to connect modern consumers with the best brands, products, services out there. I always say what has changed is the mediums via which we do it. Used to be just a website, that's now the dinosaur. And we are on Instagram, TikTok, podcast, YouTube, a community app, Red Note, I don't know, and on it goes. We're well known for pioneering employee-generated content and now what we call people-led media. So we're quite unique in that we're a media brand with people at the heart, and that has stood us in good stead. I also have a creative agency called Luxe&Co, and also a talent agency called Blush Talent Management, whereby we manage our in-house talent who have grown via the amplification they get on our channels, and also external talent that we can then incubate, amplify, and the plan is to sort of own a bigger piece of the digital media ecosystem. We're a team of about 75, launched in the Middle East maybe 2 years ago. And that's probably enough for me. Maria.
Hi, everyone. I am Maria Hatzistefanis. I am the founder of 2 beauty brands, Rodial and Nip Fab. I started my business 25 years ago when I was fired from a job in banking, and I realized the corporate world wasn't for me. I started Rodial from a back room at home without investment. It was a one-woman show for a very long time. And now, 25 years later, we are available in 35 countries, and between the 2 brands, more than 10,000 stores worldwide. We're still private, which is an anomaly in the beauty industry, but that's how we like to roll. Over the years, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I learned a lot about what it takes to be an entrepreneur and to just inspire the new generation. I've written 3 books. My first one, which is all about how I started and failed and then succeeded again, is called How to Be an Overnight Success, and then 2 more motivational books. And right now, this year, I've been traveling around the world celebrating our 25th year anniversary. I think in the beauty world, 25 years is almost like 100 years in a regular life. And I'm very proud of what we achieved. A lot of people ask me, why did you ask Rodial? When I got the idea to start a beauty brand 25 years ago, there wasn't much. You had the Estée Lauder, Lancome, L'Oreal. You had the big brands. There were no niche brands at the time. And I wanted to come up with a range that would offer targeted treatments to specific skin concerns and use fun packaging and unusual ingredients. A few of you may have heard of our unusual names, from snake serum to dragon's blood to bee venom. And even 25 years later, this is what we're known for. So we choose not to follow trends, not to compete with the ingredient of the moment, but create our own stories, our own ingredients. And I think that's what brought us here. That's my story. Thank you for having me today.
Nip and Fab, Nip and Fab.
Oh, Nip and Fab, yeah, thank you. So Nip and Fab, we started 10 years ago. I had a meeting with Boots and they wanted to stock Rodial. And I said, we can't do this. It's a luxury brand. We're at Harrods, Space &K. We can't be at Boots. So they said, why don't you create a brand for us? And so we used some of the concepts and the DNA of Rodial to launch Nip and Fab, which initially was an exclusive brand to Boots. And then it has grown, and it's actually the bigger of the two. It's bigger than Rodial right now. People don't know it. It's run by a different business. A lot of people ask me, how do you do it all together? I have a different team for Nip and Fab, and they're doing a better job than I do, apparently. That's who I am.
Thank you.
Hi everyone,
Victoria.
great to be here. I'm Victoria Prew, the founder of HURR. Age 25, I could not get out of the corporate world fast enough and left a job in chartered, I was chartered there, to co-found what is now HURR, which is a tech-first platform in the fashion rental space. 6 years ago, everyone was like, sustainability in fashion, I think it sounds like a trend. And I kind of was there saying, I'm a millennial myself, we don't own cars, we don't own houses, I don't want to own my wardrobe. There must be a platform that allows me to access fashion without owning it. So there wasn't, at least in the UK. So I sat around building it myself. We've raised about $10 million of venture capital funding, and basically have 3 parts of our model. So about half of our business is peer-to-peer. So the idea is Victoria can rent this blazer or this skirt to you. You can rent it for a fraction of the cost, rent it for up to 30 days. I'm very, very passionate about the peer-to-peer side of our business. We have women who have left their full-time jobs to rent full-time. Our top lender last year made over 100 grand renting out her wardrobe. Women have paid for their IVF from renting out their wardrobe. So I feel very, very passionately about the peer-to-peer side. Great for community, not so great for margins. So I started working with brands directly, and then went on to work with retailers too. So we now power fashion rental for 130 exclusive brand partners. Rixo, if it's kind of cool contemporary women's wear, hopefully all the brands you know. We have the exclusive on rental here in the UK. And then the third part of our business, which my investors love the most, is our white label SaaS offering, which basically when COVID hit, as you can imagine, not a great time to run a fashion rental company. I literally watched our Stripe account go down to 0. We built a white label part of our business, copied and pasted out the technology on HURR.com, and then sold it into retailers. So we now power Selfridges rental, John Lewis rental, Net-a-Porter rental. If you go on their websites, it will look and feel like you're shopping from Selfridges, but that is powered by us and the HURR team. So I look about 80 years older than I am from the stress of running 3 businesses, but that's what I do now.
Great. Thank you. Olivia?
Oh. Hi everyone, I'm Olivia, the co-founder of Trip. I do have a can in hand. It isn't just product placement. I have a newborn. This is not the first trip of my day. Started the company coming up to 6 years ago now with my husband and co-founder, Daniel. I used to work in corporate law, so I was at a Magic Circle law firm, hated it. Moved in-house to Farfetch, an online fashion retailer you guys might have known, taking them through IPO, and then completely randomly launched a business in the cannabis space with my husband of, at the time we were newlyweds, we've been together 16 years, but I would have never ever believed you, would have paid you £1 million if you bet me, would you start a business with your husband in that space? It was completely unexpected, all came out of a personal experience when we were getting married and essentially discovered the benefit of some of these natural functional ingredients, plant-based ingredients that have been used for hundreds of years in particularly Eastern medicine where I'm from, but is not discussed on the high street, and it seemed to be there was such a disconnect between the benefit of these natural ingredients and the confusing landscape customers were having to navigate. Not only that, but the format, you know, being able to, it's actually not that easy, which is why it wasn't done, but being able to put it in a drink so that you can enjoy social occasions, moments of celebration, connection, rather than popping another 6 pills, you know, on an empty stomach after you've done yoga and still in your head. Like, it was just too much, I think, for the average person to be able to participate. So for us, the mission of Trip is to create moments of calm in the everyday chaos. We talk about everyday chaos because it is the roadworks on the way here, it is the Zoom link that's not working, it is the mum doing the school run, you know, it's the everyday things that are unavoidable, but our aim is to help you create accessible and aspirational ways to enjoy taking time for yourself and looking after your mind and your body. So, as I said, we are just over 5 years ago, 5 years? 5 years now. We have a team of about 80 people in London with offices in Paris and LA. We have raised almost £20 million of funding. We're the largest privately owned soft drinks company in the UK. So typically people look at our brand and think, oh, that's very niche, that's very London. But I think what's exciting is these ingredients and the way they make people feel really cut through into the mainstream to be the largest privately owned soft drinks company and challenging you know, the big players that have been around for hundreds of years, taking customers from Diet Coke, Pepsi, hopefully there's no one in the room, from those brands, but we can chat later if they are, is very exciting because for us to be able to expand, we've recently launched in the US in Target stores nationwide. It really is a global mission and something we feel is for everyone. There isn't anyone in our daily lives, unfortunately, who doesn't experience some moment of overwhelm, some moment of stress in their day-to-day. So that's what excites us, gets us out of bed in the morning and really is central to everything we're doing on a global scale.
Great, thank you so much. And as Mark mentioned, my story is I set up Total Management TMG in 2006. Very different business back then. It was predominantly I guess, ticketing agency. We did ticketing to events that you couldn't normally get access to, like the London Fashion Week, BAFTAs, Brit Awards, all of those things, bringing corporate entertainment, giving them a different experience. I think I really wanted to evolve the business. So later on, probably in 2012, we really changed and pivoted. We are now today known as an event and group travel offsite business. We operate 95% of the US market. We do very little, ironically, in the UK. Mainly our clients are large corporate blue chip businesses who are doing offsites for anywhere between 500 to 4,000 people. And we're doing everything from moving them from A to B, organising their whole offsite solution, wraparound care with travel, event management, and the business has really evolved in that sense. As Mark also mentioned, in COVID, it wasn't the one for travel nor events. So we went from our biggest growth year to, well, pretty much no one traveling or doing any events. So it was a real moment of, I guess, a testament to our team, how we evolved as a business. And we had a lot of things to think about of what we wanted to do. And I think for us, we knew that, well, hoped that the world would once reopen. So we kind of kept things going. We pivoted to be a bit more of an online, or should I say, you know, doing more so online hybrid events, well, not so much hybrid, but online, and a lot of swag, sending out marketing collateral to a lot of big corporate companies. So we really kept that momentum going. And then, as Mark also mentioned, in the depths of lockdown, myself and my husband decided it'd be a good idea to set up a liquor business, knowing nothing about liquor or only that we like to drink it. But we set it up in our kitchen. We were thinking, actually, we love to make cocktails. Wouldn't it be great, instead of going through the laborious exercise of making a margarita, which probably takes someone probably 10 minutes at best if they know what they're doing, it wouldn't be great just to open a bottle like you open a bottle of wine and pour a wonderful margarita or whatever drink you fancy. And we thought, actually, well, let's look in the market. There was no one really doing the premium-led space. So we decided that maybe that's something that we would like to do. But to say, we actually set up the business as an initiative for charity. So we really didn't want to, at that moment in time, have a secondary business. We had enough headaches with our main business. So However, we did see a big enough gap to say, actually, let's do this. So Lockdown Liquor was conceived, and yeah, I mean, we've had our biggest growth year this year. We're growing at 300%. It's basically developed to be a solution for the on-trade. We took the route down to be more in the hospitality, anywhere you can think about where you'd like to get a cocktail, whether that's in a theatre, cinema, airline, bar, anywhere. There's no excuse not to get a good cocktail, because Lockdown Liquor is here to give you that. So we found a real gap in that market for the on-trade that we've really gone into, and it's worked out really well for us. However, the world did open up. So Jack and myself now have, divide and conquered. I spend probably 20% of my time on Lockdown Liquor, doing a bit more of the overarching funding and strategy and bigger picture, and Jack is very much involved day to day. And then I'm heavily in the trenches with TMG. We're back, having again a good run at it again. So it's very exciting to be running two businesses, albeit, as I would join you, Victoria, I feel I've aged about 8 years, but it's exciting, and it's great to come together today with you girls. And I think today we're going to talk about just, funding, strategy, growth, how it is going from, being on your own to having a team of, 60, 80, 100 people plus in different countries. And just, let's talk about the reality of it's not easy. And I think a lot of people, I think I've said this before, that, it's not all about the Instagram reels and the fun times. I think a lot of people don't talk about the sweat, the pain, the fear, all those tough parts that go along with running your business. And I think it's good something to talk about, the good, the bad, the ugly, and get really into it. So with that being said, I think one thing we did touch upon it just before we started the panel, which is actually super interesting. Funding, like anything, can be done in numerous ways. We've all had really different journeys. Maria, I know you mentioned you've written 3 books, one being very much about, you talk openly about your funding story, how you did it differently than quite a few others. So maybe it's actually a good point. Let's start with you, and maybe you can give us a little bit, how was your funding? How did you feel to make those decisions that you made today to be where the brand is today?
When I first started, again, imagine 25 years ago, and coming from a bank, I was really good at putting together a business plan and presenting, because that was my job. So I put together a business plan, and I was very confident I would get investment for Rodial. So I reached out. There weren't as many VCs and PEs right then. I reached out to about 20. I received 12 emails back. I had 5 meetings, and I got 0 investment. Why I didn't get investment? I don't have a good answer for that, but I was just a girl starting a beauty brand, and I had an idea, and I wasn't coming from a big Estee Lauder brand. I didn't have experience in beauty, so I think at the time no one trusted me. I could do a good job. I was very disappointed for a couple of reasons. One is, obviously, the money would allow me to start the business with a lot more ease. It would allow me to do more marketing, hire a team. But the other piece is, when you get investment from me, it's almost like having a tap in the back saying, hey, your idea is great. It deserves you. It's a validation. So I didn't get that. And I was disappointed. I don't know what to do. So I sat down with my husband, and he said, just start very small. So I had £20,000 of savings from my time in banking, and I thought, I was in my 20s, I'm going to put all my money into this and start small. So a small room at home, I went to this trade show called Cosmoprof, where you can find all the resources for a new beauty brand. I found labs, I found packaging companies, I found all my resources, did my meetings, and I narrowed it down. And I had my lab, I had my contract manufacturer, my packaging designer. So I did everything very grassroots at the beginning. I was running the business. I had a part-time accountant who came twice a month. And I only recruited my first sales manager after a year that I was able to afford. I wasn't even able to afford them, but I thought I need to bring in a sales manager to grow the business. So everything was really small at the beginning. I remember year 5 when we had a big viral product, the snake serum, and we started getting a lot of attention. And then I had an investor knock on my door, and he offered £250,000 for 25% of the business. And at the time I thought, oh my God, this is a lot of money and we can grow and this would be amazing. And then we had a meeting, and his idea was we need to put Rodial in the likes of Sainsbury's and Tesco's. And I'm like, no, this is not my vision. So it was very evident that all he wanted to do was really drive the growth and sell it to the next. So I thought, this doesn't align with me. I don't want to do this. So I didn't take that investment. Now, 25 years later, I've met everyone from Estée Lauder to anyone you can think of. They've approached me, but there's never been that, we have 2 brands, Rodial and Nip Fab. So there's some people interested in one brand or the other, and it's never been the right moment to get an investment.
And no investment.
I haven't got an investment, no. And the way that we operate is we are profitable. We've been out of the 25 years that we've been operating, probably the 23 years we've been profitable. And why we need to do this? Because obviously there's no one to come and save the day and pay the bills. So profitability has been our driver, which means, the group is turning over about 30 million now, but it means that if you don't get that next round of investment and you're not profitable, then I couldn't be able to sleep at night thinking, oh my God, who's going to pay the next bill? Who's going to take us to the next level? So
Because you also talk about having, control of your business, making sure that, if someone comes in, it is a different landscape. And, you talk about in your book that you very much, you didn't want to lose the say in what your brand did and developed, because you, as quite rightly said, if an investor would have come in, they could have said, actually no, you need to put it in the likes of one of those retail departments that you didn't feel that was fitting. So you do lose a bit of that control. If you have the luxury to self-fund, great, but I guess sometimes it is harder. It's a harder path, right?
100%. It's when you have your own business, I can make crazy decisions, call a product snake serum, call a product dragon's blood. When you have an investor, you have to go through committees. They dictate what marketing tools do we use. We've always been very unusual with the way we do marketing, and I'm happy with that. We've taken risks.
And you've had the autonomy to do it.
Exactly. But also I feel that, and I've seen this again and again, especially in the beauty industry, when a lot of money goes in, it's not necessarily spent on elements that bring the right ROI. And that growth money is spent very quickly. And then the investors force you to get to the next round, and slowly you release control of your company.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on the investment?
Yes, please.
bit?
Yes, absolutely.
Just because you guys, girls, have raised quite a lot of money. You haven't raised any. I've raised very little, and like I always defer to you, but we raised very little. I had a husband who was like fixated on not giving away too much equity. I met a business last week that I really, really like, and discovered that he'd given 50% of his business away for 60 grand. And I was like, well, that changes everything. We self-funded and then had 60 grand in from Ben Rex, Nick Jenkins, the founder of Moonpig, and a sort of friends and family. But and then we hit some targets, and then we raised another 150 through Ben Rex, following Nick, and we then subsequently bought them out. And now my husband and I own 85% of the business, and my team own 15%. And I would say, it does give you that autonomy. You will talk about it much more clearly. It is equity is everything, and hanging on to equity, if there's anyone in that early stage of wondering, and sometimes you've got to do it if you're producing a product and you haven't got the cash, you've got to do it. You know, we're a very high 100% net margin business as a publisher. Product changes things, doesn't it, Olivia? But you know, it is, my biggest advice would be think very carefully. I actually gave a web developer equity to build the business and bought him out sort of 4 years on. He got 60 grand, he was delighted. But you know, I think my only additional thing would be, I don't have experience in fundraising other than sort of 200 grand total, which we've managed to get back, but it's very hard to get it back.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it's quite category driven. I think I've had two situations, TMG, same with you. We had a very early angel investor, probably gave away far too much than I would have liked way back then, but we have subsequently bought him out. So, you know,
But it's rare that
yeah, so that's quite a rarity to do that. Yeah, absolutely. However, with lockdown, I think with a product-led business, I do feel that you do need to have investment, because it's such a growing, fast-paced, product-led market that you do definitely need to have forward-thinking investment to push through. You know, as we all know, you know, there's a lot of competitors on your, you know, behind you, and you know, marketing is key. You know, building product placement, and also just for us personally, we have everything in house, so we invested very early in having our own production facility. Everything that we do is from A to B is done at our facility in Balham, which is not a cheap way to do it. You know, we don't use it is, but it comes with the pressure of, you know, early investment. We did raise money early, and we were lucky enough to be able to do that. But it's an endless game, and I think, Olivia, you probably agree with that. You know, you've raised, as you said, 20 million, and you could probably raise, if you wanted to, and still have use for another 20 tomorrow morning. I think it's an endless string, isn't it, that you kind of always want. But maybe you can talk a bit more about your journey.
You guys have hit the nail on the head. It's sort of working capital to create a product. You wouldn't believe, had I known, if you want to make something unique and amazing, and if you turn this around, it's got 20 things on the back. That makes things very complicated. If I was advising a beverage now, I'd say pick 4 ingredients, something that's super scalable. But obviously that, you know, in hindsight creates your moat, etc. But working capital is really important. Profitability in this day and age is super important as well. So I think being able to balance growth with that. Tash, completely agree with your point. When it comes to you know, market opportunity and an opportunity to become a category leader, there have to be obviously a lot of financial discipline in the company, as well as kind of tailwinds that you can jump on trends and kind of amplify and accelerate faster than your competitors. I think it takes a certain type of founding team to, you know, have the appetite to do that. I started the company before kids, before a house. It would terrify me if you said, do what I did now. Honestly, like my husband and I, it almost seems like a person I don't know. We just decided to quit our jobs in law and finance and put all our savings into an area we have zero expertise or experience. So I find that, honestly, I get like jittery whenever I tell this story. But, you know, the hindsight of that naivety is, and obviously your personal financial situation is something that's really important to consider if you are thinking of launching a business. You know, we bootstrap the business, we put all our savings in. Year one with working capital and production, probably racked up like £70,000 of manufacturing costs. Initial, it all goes into product though. It was zero marketing, and that is a big hit when you have a product brand. We did not pay ourselves for 2.5 years, which was quite tough. We only had family working for us for the first 1.5 years. They were paid, but you know, not well. And things have changed. Investment allowed us to do that. So the family, we still own 2/3 of the business, which is pretty unique when you're talking about those kind of numbers. You know, our revenue this year.
It's great that you managed to hang on with that raise, and I think that's the point. It's just, even if you are raising,
definitely, it's a negotiation, right? So we wanted that money, and we were able to retain control in terms of flexibility of, you know, board decision making. I would definitely say agility is a essential superpower for anyone looking to grow a fast growth competitive business. It's not the same for everyone, so you really need to assess your own personal situation, the financing options available to you. If you are considering a product business though, we went into retail, so B2B supermarkets really early on, because we launched and thought we'd be in all the sexy bars and restaurants, launched in places like this, and then the world shut down. So we went into a supermarket in our first 1.5 years, pretty small scale. but investors can look upon that and very confidently model out rather your expansion in bricks and mortar. It layers on in terms of depth and breadth of distribution internationally as well. There's a lot of precedence for that. So I think that helps if you're looking for either loans or invoice factoring against those big retail checks, or looking to raise investment. So from our side, it's pretty unusual to hold on to the majority of a company. And you're right, every time we consider extending financing now, it's always a question of sort of dilution and ambition and where do we think we're going to take this. We also incentivize all our employees have EMI shares. We also use it with certain suppliers we've worked with since day one and love to sort of bring them on into the journey. Same with even some celebrity ambassadors who've invested in the company. I think there's so many ways of getting people excited about the journey and involving them in ways that can be flexible beyond pure fundraising. Having said that, we had a very lovely group of angels that got involved at the beginning. I guess when you're looking at the beginning, it's often based on, there's not much you can point to. If you've got a case study in a physical product, that's obviously pretty essential to easily help them model out where you could go. But I'd say it's kind of grit, determination. I think, frankly, people were backing Daniel and I as founders who are absolutely obsessed with what this could be and had zero question in our minds that this was going to change the world. I'm older and wiser now, and it's definitely more scary running a business of this size than when we started. So I think for us, it was a intimate group of people that knew us and were very excited about the opportunity, who actually continued to follow on. So we have a very unusual situation of sort of family control and a really tight cap table. Having said that, if you are thinking about a product type business, there's quite a lot of flexible financing options at the moment outside of traditional VC, where control and flexibility can be a significant trade-off.
Yeah, no, definitely. And listen, you're the 6th largest carbonated drink in the UK, and excitedly you went into the US 2024. You did a partnership with Cam, is that correct?
Yeah,
Oh my God, you sent me some. Sorry. It arrived yesterday. The strawberry one.
delicious.
My favourite.
It's insane.
That people were gathering. I was like, that's got my name on it.
Yeah, sold out. So we went into the
And the gummies are so good too.
really good before bed. They're sugar-free, which is unusual.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, we went to the States really early on because Soho House actually got involved as an investor. And they asked us to launch in the States, and we were like, okay, how hard could it be? Really effing hard. The houses are miles and miles apart. The logistics in the US from a regulatory standpoint are beyond anything my poor lawyer brain could imagine. But we've since launched a range this year, which essentially can go nationwide. And yeah, for anyone interested in product style businesses, the more scale you can achieve with limited restriction on regs or COGS, that's going to help your business. So we launched this year with Calm, the mental health app, into Target, Whole Foods, Vitamin Shop, CVS, and next year we'll be going what we call more mainstream, less sexy, Costco.
Don't worry.
I love Costco.
No judgment.
I love it.
No, but it's exciting. But also, like 2019, you're like back then pitching CBD. We're a bit more, I guess, the wellness world has grown hugely,
We always
right?
wanted to do that collab, didn't we? Like
Yeah,
a CBD
we couldn't do
cocktail
it, could
bottle.
we?
We couldn't do it.
No, I know. Regs, there will be a time. There will be a time. But no, exciting. And look, what you've done is incredible. And, you know, and I also love the fact that, like me, you work with your husband. I mean, that's a whole different
Maria.
Yeah.
Oh, you? Yes. Okay. What's wrong with us? Yeah. No, I'm joking.
I'm
No.
not working with mine.
No, well, your husband's great. I one of my great advisories. I have a lot of time for your husband. Georgie, so 2007, SheerLuxe. I mean, what you've done is incredible. You know, I've always viewed you as such a phenomenal businesswoman. You are amazing. We've had many, many conversations, and I think going back to having peers and mentors and just people you can bounce ideas off, you know, we've always had that relationship, which is amazing. But, you know, SheerLuxe has pivoted, like it's a different business, I'd imagine, since 2007. And, you know, now you're doing amazing things in the Middle East, and you've just totally changed a little bit the landscape of how people are seeing that digital space. And not to mention, you know, from someone who's personally, you know, had the experience of the SheerLuxe effect, you know, your what would you, not followers, but subscribers, demographics demographic community, that's a better word, community are loyal, amazing. And I've never, I mean, I always remember actually when we first launched Lockdown Liquor, I think you put some post up and on Instagram, and you know, we were, I think, still, I think doing it.
Freezing lines in our dressing gown.
Yes, that I wasn't quite going to say that, but you kind of, you're going to say that. And you know how the community embraced you know, Lockdown Liquor, and has continued to do so. And like, you know, you've always been a massive supporter of us, which has been amazing. But it's a phenomenal, it's a power. I always say to people, you know, no offense to everyone else at Condé Nast and Vogue and all those nice places, but you know, SheerLuxe hits differently. It's amazing. Like every brand who I speak to always say, you know, get in front of the SheerLuxe community. You guys are just doing amazing things. So kudos to you. But talk to us, 2007, where we are now, strategy, scale. You said you didn't do any funding, so it's just been you, has it?
Yeah, working very long hours with a very supportive husband who at 3 a.m. used to wake up and realise I still wasn't in bed and come and get me. Our mission, I said earlier, has always been to connect people with the best brands, products, services. That hasn't changed. The digital landscape has. We have a community of around 5.5, coming up to 6 million across social, podcasts, YouTube's 800,000 subscribers, a 60% open rate. We always said we wanted to get under the skin of the SheerLuxe reader. We don't want to be a magazine that they put up and they put down. We want to be part of their lifestyle. And that was a sort of conscious mission of how do we do that. And we've done that, I touched on it briefly earlier, by really refining our DNA as a media brand, with authority as a media brand, but with people at the heart of it. And as you'll know, I'm sure, the media landscape, the media world is going through a pretty tough time right now. The likes of Unilever reducing their spending, putting more into talent. But yeah, uniquely our team have become our talent. And we say, you know, we'll leave Mary Claire and Vogue to what's in Kate Blanchett's handbag. Our community want to know what's in Charlotte or Lou or Samna or Daisy or Hodges or whoever else is handbag. So we're really doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on that and bringing in more contributors. We've always focused on authenticity. We built a business that was consumer first, not SEO first. Someone said to me the other day from a very big US publisher that Google was broken. These are her words, not mine. And the fact that we had a brand and diversity of channels, and by channels I mean social, site. We have a community app, YouTube, etc., broadcasting. And diversity of revenue, i.e. if TikTok had shut down, that wouldn't have been a problem for us. Shame, but you know, we weren't reliant on that. We don't drive revenue off page views. I was explaining to a friend last night how digital media works, and that, you know, Daily Mail write about celebrities in the royals. People come in, they sell ads on a cost per thousand. That's the old model. We've always created content, and I think for all of us, it's consumer first, isn't it? But ultimately, our success in digital publishing, I always say it's 3-step. It's content first, and that for us involves people. So in the Middle East, I spent a long time building in the UAE initially. We're working on Saudi. That's taking a bit longer, slightly different work ethic. Incredible people. Go see it. It's insane what's happening there. But it's content and people at step 1. Step 2 is your audience, your reach. Step 3 is monetization. And that is the formula to success in digital media. And I think starting with content that was always about, will this be interesting for me? Will this connect with me? If I was reading this magazine, what do I want to read about? That's where it started. And then employee generated content came along, probably because I'm nosy and I want to see behind other businesses. And we just saw that really gave us this authentic connection, this loyalty, this trust. And Charlotte and I always laugh about grey carpets, and that we were sitting on the podcast going, this grey carpet is life changing. That people are going, okay, I'm going, and so it's that sort of authenticity and building on the people under a media brand, which has stood us in good stead. And you know, we always say we sort of incline like this, but we're in a good place in a tricky media landscape. We're 75 in London, keep growing. Our costs are people. Our costs are our offices and people. And
Can I just add something? I have to say that Georgie was part of my peer group when I started Rodial. She started a little bit later than me. We both had little offices on Lotz Road, and we would go at the local Starbucks. I don't think we either had a meeting
wasn't it
room.
Starbucks?
It was
There's
like a little
where
coffee
she used
shop.
to cook for you at night. Do you remember? Because you
Yeah.
were too busy to cook.
Exactly. So we would go to the local coffee shop and it just drop it all. What are you facing? What are your challenges? And I remember those coffee meetings we had. They were so motivational for me, thinking of there's someone going through very similar challenges. And I feel having a peer group at whatever level of your business you are, whether it's a startup about to scale, it's super important. And I feel we're very good at that, connecting and supporting each other. So always go back to those lots.
Yeah, I do too. And we talk and I think finding people at a similar level and stage as you is really important. And
Keeps you sane.
you know, I think I've met you two more recently than I known Maria forever, and we just didn't like each other first, and then we suddenly realised actually we were quite similar, and she's now one of my greatest friends in the world. But you know, I think for me, what's really interesting is, sorry, a bit too much sharing, but her husband's standing over there going, yeah, they sit up for hours talking about work.
But I think that's to your point. It's good to have someone to, no matter what stage you're at. It's, you know, if it's, you know, day one idea. You know, I talk to you about so much because I think when you run a business, it's a very isolating, and you can have the best team in the world. Like I have in both businesses, such a amazing team, and they're such amazing people, and I get so much energy from them. However, it can be a lonely existence.
You're the number. Natalie Massany said to me once, she was like, just remember, when I met her 15 years ago, just remember, you're not friends with them. You can't be friends with them all. You can be a good leader and you can be likable.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Yeah.
They're not your peers.
Well, yes.
So it is lonely.
Yeah, it is lonely. And I think, you know, they rely on you to make decisions that aren't going to, you know, that allow them pay their rent and their mortgage. And, you know, that responsibility comes with, you know, a heavy weight. But going back to strategy, Victoria, so HURR, just to say, I wanted to go on the HURR journey. So actually this blazer is from HURR.
I was going to ask you, Blazer Lalme, great choice.
Yeah. And I wanted to experience, you know, what it's like to work, you know, obviously I use all your products, but it was quite nice. I've always admired you from the sidelines. And I have to say, it's amazing. Like, I think the world we live in, sustainability, I think people just don't have that luxury anymore to go and spend X amount on new wardrobes. And just, I think you've built not only a technology business, but you've built something that is really hitting the mark across, you know, everyone likes to look well, likes to dress well, but they, you know, they don't want to spend their paychecks on, you know, that really expensive new bag or that blazer, etc. And I think the way you've created this easy technology model to go peer-to-peer is phenomenal. I know that you've also mentioned that you have gone into bricks and mortar, like you did a pop-up in Selfridges, and I know that you had a pop-up on the King's Road, and you've done a really stellar job in terms of transforming from not only a technology, but also being a recognizable brand. Like, I think people now recognize HURR, and I asked just, you know, a place to go and shop. And I think also, which is super interesting, is that people are wearing it with, I think, what's the word, like, pride. I think gone are the days where you have to pretend oh, this is actually mine. It's like, no, I'm sustainable. I wear HURR. I shop on their platform. And so you should. So I think, you know, it goes back to, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, it goes back to AI. I think so many people back in the day, it was like the dirty secret. No one wanted to admit they were using AI. And I think nowadays, you know, we've really re-engineered that and re-educated people to know that actually, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. We're doing so much AI work throughout all our businesses. And, you know, back in the day, you'd have conversation like, oh, spot the person who used AI. It's like, well, nowadays it's like, good on you. I mean, I wish I'd thought of that. And people are using it for marketing, branding, and, you know, just what they can do nowadays is phenomenal. But back to her, you know, how did you, like, when you set up, you know, the business in a world where I guess rental was warming up, it wasn't something that was, you know, everyone was doing, it was a new kind of territory, you know, you've really like owned and landed that space. There's been a few people I've seen come onto the market, but, you know, you definitely, anyone I've talked to, you know, you've captured that market and you, from my perspective, really own that space. But, you know, did you kind of formalize it first and foremost as a technology business? Like, what was your thought process when you thought about HURR at the very start? Like, where did you get to? Like, what was that?
How did you get known so quickly, I think? Like, I think that's really... Yeah, I do. I really do.
So age 25, I knew that it was to build a tech-first platform. My co-founder and I literally sat in a basin in Shoreditch for a year from line one of code, building out the entire platform. So we own 100% of our IP. I basically wanted to take the tech of Airbnb and then put the front end of Net-a-Porter on. That was the mission, combine the two businesses. So it was really important to me, especially when you're trying to change consumer behavior. There was a time 10, 15 years ago when Uber launched, and the idea of getting in a car with a stranger was complete madness, right? Like, do you remember, I remember vividly, like, is this safe? And obviously it's slightly less extreme, but renting it rather than owning and sharing economy was the same consumer behavior shift. So for me, I became absolutely paranoid with the idea of like legitimizing rental. I absolutely did not want to build a jumble sale for rental. I wanted to build something that felt elevated and felt cool. And that was really hard to do 6 years ago when no one had really rented before. So there was a few key things. First thing was, well, it's actually funny, like now people tag HURR rather than the brand. So some of our brand partners are like, if they're renting from Net-a-Porter, why are they tagging Net-a-Porter? They're tagging HURR. And you're right, it is that association with having an elevated brand in this space. I think we've done a good job of bringing, if you look at like a Vestiaire Collective or the Real, they have only kept that peer-to-peer side of their business. Where our scale and our legitimization and hopefully our growth in those early days came from was basically bringing the brands on board. So Chanel sue the Real every 5 minutes for IP, and yeah, it's all a bit of a mess. My view was, if I can take these brands on the journey with me, A, they're less likely to sue me if we're partnered, and B, HURR is fundamentally a tech play, but it's a data play. So I have a unique ability to tell you what Olivia is wearing to her wedding in the south of France in 6 weeks' time. So when we talk about AI, I can tell you what 100,000 people are wearing to their June, July, August wedding now because they've already placed their orders on HURR. We then take all of that data, aggregator, and then feed it into the brands and the retailers to give them like actual opportunities. So to give you an example, a couple of years ago, December comes, we start seeing ski wear pumping through our peer-to-peer network. Everyone's renting the perfect moment because they don't want to go and spend another 800 quid on the season's, one piece. We then call up Perfect Moment, call up Selfridges, call up, whatever retailer that we work with. And then they send us ski stock and we know that we can capitalize on that demand. So
you're also empowering their buying teams, though.
100%. Yeah. So we work very, very closely with the buying teams. We have about, £85 million worth of stock on the HURR platform. We own zero of that stock. So all of that stock is still owned by the brands, whether that's Ganni or Net-a-Porter. We basically act as the middleman and the agent. So they trust us because we're the kind of rental experts, but fundamentally it's their buying teams taking the risk. So it's a really collaborative approach. So I think the legitimization, and then you talked about the power of celebrity and influencer. I remember one of the happiest days of my life was when Charlotte Collins said to me, editor at SheerLuxe, before I go on Net-a-Porter, see if I can rent it on HURR first. I thought, I've won the game.
But it's so true, right? I mean, why would you, and you're sharing wardrobes. I mean, we do it a lot, we share stuff, and I think...
I need to charge you.
Sorry. No. Yeah. No, but it's good. Do you know what I mean? It's a really good concept. I really enjoy that, and I think you've built a phenomenal business, and I can only imagine that it's only going to grow from strength to strength, which is exciting. So let's talk a little bit more. I think about yes, we all are where we are today. As I mentioned earlier, it does not come without its growing pains, no matter what size you are. I think we can all talk, and probably for a little bit too long. I think for me personally, one of the biggest issues, not issues, but I guess mind wrecks is that, for us as a business, across both businesses, one's an agency, one's a product-led business, they both operate very differently. At the core values that, we're good people, we want to create businesses that are, well respected, we want to create good company culture. However, it's not always that easy, as we all know, because, you try and put all the goodwill in the world to put together a really good strategy to have said good culture and do everything, which generally is really, really important. It comes down to team and how you, I guess, strategize and how you grow your business. But for me personally, I guess one of the biggest challenges was actually pivoting into that, going from 50 to X over that amount of people. You try and still operate as a small business, but you fundamentally can't. So you have to still put policies into play, and you get a little bit more rigid in terms of how you have to scale. And I think the question is that I have to both of you, or all of you, should I say, is, we're founders. When do you switch over that hat? Do you still see yourself a founder / CEO? Are some of you taking more of a back role in more of a CEO managerial position? I know, Marie, you said you're still in the trenches every day with your team, which is after 25 years, that's brilliant, because so many people do try and delegate a little bit too much, and they actually miss a beat. And I think if you're not in the heart of your business, you can sometimes not be with your team when it counts.
So what I've done over the years is, yes, I'm fully involved. I still go to the office every single day, but there was a point, because we manage two brands, Rodial and Nip Fab. There was a point that I needed to make sure that Nip Fab has its own identity, its own team. So a couple of years into Nip Fab, we started splitting the teams, and now Nip Fab has its own managing director, its own commercial team. So while we're Yes, but it's such a self-sufficient team that I'm more as a consultant, making sure the brand image, the story is kept since we started, and also I make sure that the people that we hire, I'm getting involved in a lot of the recruiting, the HR, just to make sure that we keep the culture, but the team runs independently. What I'm involved on a day-to-day basis, and a lot more involved, is the Rodial side of things. And I feel that, what they say, when you're an entrepreneur, you can be wherever you want in the world and manage the business. If I'm away for more than 10 days, I get anxiety that I need to get back. And it's not that things are going to collapse, but I think that a founder brings a different type of energy, energizes the team. Everyone works better when I'm around. Everyone has more ideas. Everyone's more proactive. I feel if I was to say I'm going to be away for 2 months and I will be on Zoom and calls, I think the business would run as is, but nothing exciting would come out of it. So it's sort of the founder sometimes brings that sparkle that the business needs to withstand competition, to come up with innovation, to be in the forefront of marketing. For me, I need to be there to make all those things happen.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think it's also hard, when you're trying to set that tone and lead by example, the work-life balance is still one of the biggest mysteries of the world, how do you actually do that? I think you don't really, you kind of pick a lane, and you're sometimes really good at work and sometimes you're really good at your home life. But I think doing them both is at times unrealistic for someone who has the responsibility for many people. So I think that's something that, people always ask, how do you do it all? You've got 3 young kids, you've got 2 businesses. And I don't do it all. I'm probably doing loads of things wrong, and, it's not easy, but, I try my best, and I'm sure you'd agree with that. But I think, you know, we also lead by example. So I'm always, I haven't had an out of office on my email for, well, since 2006. So it's not a great example, and I wouldn't recommend that. And I always say to my team, you know, if you're taking a break, take a break. Don't, like, you know, we have wellness days where we encourage our whole team to, you know, just get offline, don't be on your phone. And, you know, and I feel like it is a challenge for me, certainly, to lead by that example, but yet tell people to be offline.
But I think that's the difference, isn't it, between being a founder and people will say to me, how do you switch off? And I say, when you do what you love, and then ultimately you make a choice, don't you? And actually, when I'm on holiday is some of my best thinking time, because I am out of the weeds, but I love what I do, and I actually love that luxury of having a bit of thinking time. I know you're the same, and so I think we have to have different expectations for our teams and ourselves than we do on ours, and they do need switch off, and we have to empower that, and we have to adapt for a different generation who want a different life balance than perhaps was the norm, as people keep saying, in our day, we were sitting at our desk. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work like that anymore. 6:01, my office is empty. And, you know, it's changed. And probably will look like and go, shit, people spent 5 days in an office. And it is changing. My husband works in finance. I'm like, hon, you gotta flex. And it's great that you pay so much maternity leave. What about the dads? You gotta let them, you know, you've got to flex. So I think the rules we have for ourselves are different, and that is because we are entrepreneurs and founders, and that excites us and drives us, I think. And so I think it's very different.
I completely agree. To add to that, I remember really struggling with the idea that not everyone was as obsessed with her as I was. I'd employ them, and I couldn't understand why they didn't want to work 24 hours a day. I was like, well, this is the best business that's ever existed. And it took me a long time to actually realise that as a founder or the CEO, you are fundamentally incentivized in a completely different way. Yes, you can have a ESOP share pool, and everyone's got a few shares each, but the founder, no one is incentivized like the founder from a financial and from a kind of risk as well point of view. I think the best things that we've learned is that, like, younger team members love rituals. They love their, like, Friday wins, CEO hours. So, like, actually how you can keep driving that vision, especially with venture backed, right? I've got a gun to my head. If I don't grow, I've got a problem. So I've got to be able to take that stress and actually turn that into action. So how you can drive your team hard and then still remain, a good leader and a good culture.
We talk about that
is hard.
a lot. I'm always like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about
Yeah,
this?
it's hard, and it is hard, and I still don't think we have the balance right. I think it's next to impossible, because then you tell your team, this is really challenging. We need to do the next 4 months is our busiest scheduling ever, dig deep, work hard, and they're like, well, we do that all the time, and it's easy for you to say that, and you're, as you said, incentivized differently than I am, so it is hard. And I think we all need to learn still so much of how we can navigate through that. But one other thing I would say is that, I know that we're nearly running out of time. To wrap it up, I think it's very easy for us all to sit here and remember the biggest victory in the last X amount of years. I think what people would be more interested to know is, what's been the biggest mistake, or where you've just gone, oh, this is really bad, and thought, this could be lights out. Is there anything, without going into too much detail or taking too long, is there anything, Olivia, that, through your journey of Drift, there's probably been many, but is there anything that stands out?
But yeah, the whole time, things I can't repeat, like so many all the time. I guess my husband and I are quite headstrong. Quite often it's not like I made the mistake, it's like mistakes have happened. Factories have burned down, shipments have not arrived at the Oscars when they were supposed to arrive a week before. This is like completely commonplace. You name it. When it comes to physical product, I literally, launching one of the biggest retailers of our career, the stock, the factory burned down. We had to get friends and family to go to the factory to collect single cans and try and save them, because we put all our money into making them and we didn't want to let the retailer down. I have so many. I think this is a bit of a negative one, which I don't want to leave on a negative, but I'm going to tell you. Hiring, we could afford our first like semi-senior hire, and we hired someone with like loads of experience, and they actually, no one's done your brand before or cares about it in the same way. And this level of growth, I think a lot of us on this panel share is quite unusual in terms of, I'd love to talk more, especially Georgie and Victoria, about like pivoting and shifting through those different business models and how you manage that when employees find it easier when there's one direction and one mandate, and it's more easy to follow a career path that matches what their peers are. The cross-functional concepts, I think people find pretty intimidating, so you have to hire specifically for that mindset, and they have to be aligned to your overall mission, think you have an exceptional brand and product, which I know we all do, otherwise they're not going to be as motivated to do the impossible. But yeah, hiring someone from a esteemed corporate background, taking a step back from that function, thinking it was obviously going to be way better than we had done, and then discovering, £1 million holes was, I'm not over it. Yeah.
Don't think I would be either. Yes, yeah, fair. What about you, Victoria?
We've cut it pretty close to the wire on funding a few times. We've done a number of venture-backed rounds. I've raised when money was really easy, way back when I was 25. The first round I ever did, I was like, this is like quite straightforward. I've done some really rough rounds since. We had about 4 days cash in the bank. My mum actually was our head of HR, and she kept saying to me, it's all looking a bit shaky.
We'll definitely put money in to pay wages. I've definitely done that.
Yeah. There were bills coming through, and I was like, oh, sat on a panel that morning thinking, in 4 days' time, there's going to be a headline. But Vogue have this like series called, when a company goes bust, called Post-Mortem. So in my head, I was just sat there, and like I still had this recurring nightmare of like HURR's post-mortem. So yeah, we've cut it pretty close on fundraisings a few times. I remarkably was just not that stressed, because I believe that everything's going to work out. It's all going to be fine. The older members of my team.
I think I've said this before. We're all a little bit unhinged. Like I think I'm definitely not. Like I think I'm like, sometimes we're so up against it. I'm like, but it's fine. What's the problem? And it's like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? It's like,
it keeps being fine, and then you allow yourself to keep teetering on the edge, because you're like, well, that worked out okay, didn't it?
But my biggest lesson was, don't raise money when you need it, raise it when you don't need it. But I learned that lesson with 4 days cash in the bank and a lot of grey hairs later.
What about you, Maria?
So we almost went bankrupt about 6-7 years ago. It's actually the start of my second book, How to Make It Happen. There's all the details of how we did and how we didn't at the end. And to cut a long story short, there was this opportunity for us from one of the retailers to launch an exclusive range with them that was seasonal, with self-tanners and bronzing products. And we had to deliver about 30 SKUs that would launch within that specific retailer. I did not believe that we were the right partner to do this, but my team was seeing, pound dollar signs and thought, oh my God, that's lots of millions. We cannot say no to that. So my mistake was going against my gut feeling, saying yes to an opportunity. I knew it wasn't right, but my team influenced me. We're going to get a lot of orders, all that. And at the end, we had to take back all the stock at the end of the season. I was stuck with a lot of stock. We had lots of suppliers to pay. We owed between 1 and 2 million. So I had to get rid of the stock in various ways. I had to ask for terms to our suppliers and got us back into profitability in 9 months. But for me, that is the lesson. If something doesn't feel right to you, whatever other people are telling you or whatever the financial opportunity it is, just don't do it.
True. Good advice. Georgie?
I think we've done everything very, very organically and steadily. I've watched a lot of businesses raise a lot of money and disappear. And I have a real attitude around MVP, minimum viable product, launch, give it enough time, because things take longer. But as Emma Bridgewater said, if something doesn't work, that's what TK Maxx is for. We've tried things that didn't work. You move on and you keep pivoting, and that is what we have had to do. The goalposts move all the time. I'm a real believer in testing. Someone tried to make me sign up for a year's contract the other day. I was like, that's ridiculous. We guarantee. And I thought, well, if you're so confident, give me a 3-month test. And I remember early on advertising on Condé Nast, they wouldn't take our money now, but in those days they didn't know who we were. And I think we spent $3,000. I mean, we were like one to try and acquire some data, and we had 4 subscribers, and I was like, I might as well just put the money in the bin. And I would say as a result, we've tested. Also, I would say lastly is getting the people right. You know, hire slowly, fire quickly. We fire very, very, very few people because we now hire very, very slowly. And it's not necessarily my biggest skill. I sort of want to see the best in everybody, and I have a chief of staff who, as Charlotte said the other day, her bullshit DAR is second to none. And so I think, you know, getting the people right and
I think I'd agree with that.
Being open to change, like just being really open to change.
I think, yeah, people and cash, I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, right? Sometimes you hire people that you can't afford, and you're convinced, you know, certainly with lockdown, you know, again, Olivia, what you said, you know, you get sold the dream, and you kind of get blindsided by, you know, the 20, 30 years experience, but no one quite knows a challenger brand until you're in it. And I think, you know, you can come from some of the biggest, you know, drinks brands in the world, but will they be able to really get in the grind with you in the trenches? Probably not. And I think sometimes there is a sense of, you know, you've been sold the dream, you're paying those big corporate wages and you're not getting the ROI, which is probably not their fault. They should probably do their homework and realize that you're not going to be the same playing field as a Moet or, you know, whatever. But equally, we have a really good team now. It's taken us a minute to get there, and I think we've learned so much along the way to make sure, as you said, hire really, really carefully. And I think we've finally, well, I don't want to actually say that, I think we've nailed it. This is where something goes terribly wrong. And then the other one is, yeah, cash. I mean, goodness me, I mean, you can never have enough of it, right, for businesses. I mean, it just runs out quicker than you know.
We still behave like such a startup. I mean, yeah. I'm sure you're the same. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we are, you know, I asked our FD if I could see the expenses because I thought they were getting a bit high. She said, Georgie, you can roll time for that. I was like, yeah, have. Definitely. I was like, I think the taxis, there's a lot of taxis going on. If there's no equipment, they're not in a taxi, and it's definitely not black, it's an Uber. So, you know, that mentality is in us and has not changed.
Can I ask you guys a question? I've got a feel for how involved you are, obviously
But I also delegate. I'm a big believer in delegate. I'm not some micromanaging bitch, but I'm delighted when my team, we say this, there's nothing like seeing your team nail something. That gives me the greatest joy. But there are things.
Were there moments in the career or the brand where you learned and saw from the right person the approach to delegation, where you shifted? Because
when you trust them, when you know them,
which takes a long time in terms of people don't step into a role. I think it's unrealistic to expect someone to step into a role and be running things as you'd expect.
Yeah, even if there's some mega hire from, you know, Microsoft or whatever.
The massive hires were always the worst for me.
Oh, me too.
It was the worst because you see all the CV, all these amazing companies, and they come on board.
You've got too much experience. Out.
I think it's the gut thing that Maria mentioned. I think for me, that experience of wanting to let go to save some capacity and, you know, look less closely at certain things, trust, I guess, or in a weird way. But
and knowing that you've got to spend some time with them, we just hired someone really good. And she's just come in and she's tough. And actually took us out the other day and I was like, I'm so happy you're here. It's like, we have a really gentle culture. Just go gently. And already the change is huge. And I think, no, I've just got to spend a bit of time with her so that she learns our approach, because we don't rock around saying, she walked out and she went, you lot in there. And I was like, oh, no. That's not how we talk to our team.
No, it is. But I think trust is built. I think, you know, with total management, where I have my MD who's been with me. She was my first hire, and hopefully will be the last, hopefully, as in like last out, you know what I mean? Basically, she's a great hire. And, you know, we've got such a formidable relationship. She knows me better than anyone. She knows how we run as a business, but you can't hire that. No one can compete with that, you know? So when you learn to build your team, but, you know, it definitely takes time. And likewise, you know, lockdown, we've been burned to the ground on quite a few occasions when you think you've got it right. And then suddenly, I mean, we had someone who came into the business, worked a couple of days and then went to one of our competitors. And I was like, what was that about? And like, it's like, I just don't even understand that. Why you would even do that? Like, it's just
MB is a good example though. We, our first 5 hires are still in the business, which I feel like is saying something. I think they can become what we call, it's a bit of a cringe word, something like culture champions. They know you so well. They know what you were like when you sat around the same table and were knocking knees literally in the kitchen. And they can help establish and guide you on where, you know, you can scale this thing from an internal perspective. So actually reflecting on that, people always say hire great people. And I look at those first few joiners and it's not like I hired great people. They took an effing chance on me when we were literally working in our living room. It was a lockdown. This thing had, you know, legs, but was up against it. You couldn't advertise, you couldn't get a bank account, you couldn't use Shopify Pay, you couldn't go into retail. And they took a chance on us, and I'll be forever grateful for them taking a chance on.
And you took a chance on them.
I mean,
because you
like I had loads of like
but equally you're paying their wages probably out of your own money. So like you have to, hopefully there's a trust on both sides. They took a chance on you, but in some ways they could walk out the door and probably get another job relatively quickly. You will never get that money back. So I think, you know, I think you have to get like-minded people who embrace, I guess, what you're doing for the company sometimes is a bit of the unsaid involvement in the background. I think, you know, we've all been there where we've had to pay wages when, you know, it's not being there, the timing's being wrong. You know, you get through that, you come out the other side, and hopefully that's not happening now. But equally, you know, I think until you live and breathe that with a company, and you can tell when founders are really up against it. It's kind of this dread of paleness, just looking like something's just, you haven't slept for about 100 years. But you know, and it's the people who stick with you and go, listen, let's rally, let's go, we've got this, and they're the people you remember. You know,
I do think as well. I was chatting to Trini the other day, and she was rightly saying that, you know, those people are key, and you obviously got seriously lucky with your MD. And I have Laura, our founding manager, who's been with me for 17 years, and my senior team have an average tenure of over 10. But it's also bringing in, knowing that they're not only they can take you to the next level, you also need to bring in more specialist skill. And there's a, you know, jack of all, master of none at the beginning, and hopefully some of them can evolve and grow. And with our team, you know, what we do is in their DNA, and other places don't have that. But we've also had to bring in other speciality talent alongside them to be able to step up the business. I think that's really important too.
For me, there's a few tests that I do to realize if this person is just a 9-to-5 person that will be here for a few years and then move on, or this is someone I can really trust. One of them is, and I always connect with my staff during business hours, 9 to 5:30. I never bother anyone on the weekends. If there's an emergency on the weekend, obviously I check my emails. I don't actively write emails, but I check. And there's an emergency on the weekend, and this person is on the email and doesn't answer, I'm not going to be mad, but I know where I position them. The other thing is when a proposal or something comes my way directed to me and they just simply forward it. I would like to see, Maria, this probably not of interest to you, but I'm sharing it with you.
Yeah.
Again, you know, that shows that they really understand the business and the culture. The third thing is problem solving, as we all want to do. That I want to have someone come to me and say, there was this problem, I solved it for you, this is where we are right now, rather than people who come to me with problems. So there's a few tests that I always have. This doesn't mean this person's not going to be with Rodial. They can have a great career, but I've positioned them where they need to be, and my top people will do the little extra that I feel I can fully trust them.